Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are finishing up with Troilus and Cressida today. We get to hear from Pandarus at the very end of Act 5, Scene 10. So really quick, the stuff that happened. We were just in the battle, in the chaos of this battle, wherein Achilles and his minions / myrmidons found Hector and killed him, and then Achilles tied Hector's body to the back of his horse and drug him across the field. And then everybody finds out about this, and it's sort of the end of the day of fighting. So they go back to their respective camps, and we see that the Greeks see this as potentially a good thing. You know, if Troy doesn't have their champion Hector anymore, then maybe the Greeks can actually win the war. And of course, the Trojans are devastated by this, and we got to hear from Troilus yesterday, who not only lost this champion, but also lost his brother. That was his brother Hector, who was dragged across the battlefield behind a horse. So he was very sad and kind of eulogized his brother, but then decided that this would be the time to seek revenge, to take that, and instead of letting the loss of Hector mean the fall of Troy, he now wants to get revenge on Achilles. And Pandarus entered at that moment, and as Troilus was leaving, he sort of shoves Pandarus out of the way and curses him with ignominy for the rest of his life. Says, you know, this is what your name is going to be associated with forever. Get out of here. And then everybody except for Pandarus leaves, and Pandarus says, a goodly medicine for mine aching bones. Oh, world, world, world. Thus is the poor agent despised. O traitors and bawds, how earnestly are you set a work, and how ill requited! Why should our endeavor be so desired, and the performance so loathed? What verse for it? What instance for it? Let me see. Full merrily the humble bee doth sing, till he have lost his honey and his sting. And being once subdued in armed tale, sweet honey and sweet notes together fail. Good traders in the flesh, set this in your painted clothes. As many as be here of Pandar's hall, your eyes half out, weep out at Pandar's fall. Or if you cannot weep, yet give some groans, though not for me, yet for your aching bones. Brethren and sisters of the hold door trade, some 2 months hence my will shall here be made. It should be now, but that my fear is this, some galled goose of Winchester would hiss. Till then, I'll sweat and seek about for eases, and at that time bequeath you my diseases. And that's the end of the play. That's the end of the play. So what he's saying is, the first part of this, he's talking about sex workers. He's talking about people who run brothels and that sort of thing, and how their wares are very much desired, but when people actually take advantage of those wares, they're very much loathed. And he tries to, think of some sort of precedent for this, and he sings a little song, which I didn't sing, but you could hear the poetry part of it. He sings that, and then he comes back and he decides that he's going to address all of the sex workers in the audience. Basically, he turns out to them and he's like, maybe feel a little bit bad for me because I'm only going to be alive for about 2 more months because I've got venereal diseases, and once I'm dead, then they're going to be yours. And that's the end of the play. So it's when we started this journey on Troilus and Cressida, I said that I had been given the impression at some point before I read the play, before I saw a production of the play, that it was a combination of Romeo and Juliet and Coriolanus. But digging further into it, and even the production that I saw, I remember feeling somewhat dissatisfied. And to me, that dissatisfaction comes from the fact that we have these 2 different stories, we have these 2 different plot lines, and neither one of them comes to a really satisfactory end. The play is called Troilus and Cressida, so you would imagine that the focus would be on the relationship between Troilus and Cressida, but it's not an overwhelmingly loving relationship to begin with. And then the last that we see of it is we see Cressida flirting with Diomedes, giving him this sleeve that Troilus had given her, which Diomedes then wears in his helmet, and her basically saying that she's done with Troilus, and then Troilus being all sad about it and going off to fight a war. So we don't know, do they ever get back together? Does Troilus find somebody else? Does Cressida end up with Diomedes? Like that, there's so many questions still left unanswered in that relationship. Does he ever even get to talk to her about the fact that he saw Diomedes on the battlefield with his sleeve in his helm? And as near as I can tell, Diomedes is surviving through the end of the play. Because the people who died in the battle, which takes us to the other half of the play, the whole, like, we're in the middle of the Trojan War thing, the people who died in the big battle at the end were Patroclus, and Hector, who, is a big blow. But that takes Troilus's attentions away from Cressida and puts them on the fact that he lost his brother. So yes, he loses Cressida, but he also loses his brother, which spurs him to revenge, which we never get to see. We started this war in the middle of the Trojan War, about 7 years into it, and we finish still in the middle of the war, still 7 years and some odd days into it, with no clear idea of who's going to win, who's not going to win, who's going to survive, who's not going to survive at this point. It's like a slice of life play in the middle of this war where we leave with no real answers to our questions, with no real character arcs amongst most of the characters. They end up in very similar places to where they started. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that a lot of them are very caricature-ish. Nestor, the old man, is very much just the old man. Achilles, the war hero, is just the, beefcake war hero, as is Ajax, stuff like that. So there isn't necessarily a whole lot of room for them to grow and develop as characters in this play, and so they don't. And then we end it with Pandarus, of all people, cursing the audience with venereal disease. So they say that comedies end in marriage and tragedies end in death. I don't know how to classify a play that ends in an actor cursing the audience with venereal diseases. I'm not sure what category that falls into. Maybe like a high school sex ed documentary video, educational film, something like that. So anyway, I would love to hear your thoughts on Troilus and Cressida. See if you found it to be perhaps more fulfilling or more satisfactory than I did. But it's a difficult play to do for a lot of those reasons, and that's probably why it's not necessarily performed very much. But if you get an opportunity to go see it and tell me about what people did with it and whether or not that helped answer some of these unanswerable questions still left in the play. So anyway, that's Troilus and Cressida, and tomorrow is new play day. We're going to start in on Twelfth Night, or What You Will, which, well, we'll get into that tomorrow or later in the Twelfth Night series. But anyway, Twelfth Night begins tomorrow. Even though we're nowhere, as I'm recording this, we're nowhere near to Christmas time or the actual 12th night. But we're going to start in on the play 12th Night tomorrow, and I will see you then for that. Mwah.